Hey everyone, it's Carly Hall, and today we are making this project here. It is an acrylic blank with glitter on the back with UV resin and then vinyl and UV resin on the front. I added some keychain hardware, but you can also make this an ornament if you'd like, add some ribbon, really up to you. I thought it would look really cute on a dog carrier, so I stuck some keychain hardware on it so I can attach it to Poppy's little dog carrier. All right, let me show you what you need to get started. Here's what we'll need for this project. An acrylic blank, this one has the masking tape still on it, so I'll peel that off, and I'll link to a couple of options that you can purchase. I'll be using UV resin. You can also use 2-part resin, but this will cure a lot faster under a UV light. And then I'm going to be mixing mine with this Paris glitter from Backfist Customs, and I'll link to that. You'll need something to mix your resin and your glitter, so I have a popsicle stick and a silicone mixing cup, which I'll link to, and the silicone brush that I'll use to smooth out the resin. I'll be putting vinyl on my blank, so you'll also want to cut whatever vinyl sentiment that you'd like to say using whatever cutting machine you'd like. And then if you want the keychain hardware, I will link to that as well. All right, let's get started. Acrylic blanks usually come with some type of masking tape over them, so you'll just want to gently peel that away, being careful not to scratch your blank. And then we'll just leave one side uncovered and you'll leave the masking on the other side. We're going to start by pouring some UV resin into the silicone mixing cup, and I just popped off my entire lid and poured just a little bit into the bottom of my cup. And if you're using 2-part resin, you'll just want to make sure that you mix your parts equally. I coated the bottom of my mixing cup, and it's probably about 5 milliliters of UV resin in there. And then you'll just pour in as much glitter as you want. So there's no really recommended mixing ratio. You just want to make sure that you put enough glitter to where it's to your liking. So if you want it to be more opaque, you'll add more glitter. And if you want it to be a little bit more transparent, add less. So here's what my mixing consistency looks like. Pretty good glitter ratio. I should have had gloves on that whole time, but I just put them on, so don't forget your gloves, and then make sure that your glitter and UV resin is mixed, and then slowly pour just a little bit onto your blank. I'm going to start in the center, and we're going to work our way out. So I'm just going to add a little bit in the middle, and then to the edges of the bone as well. And then using my popsicle stick or my silicone brush, I'm going to push the mixture to the edges of my blank. So the surface tension will follow wherever you push. And you'll notice that the glitter looks a little bit lighter where I'm pushing, but we're going to go back through and add a little bit more glitter to those areas. So just push the glitter all the way to the edges of your blank. Up by the hole, you're just going to want to go around the edge and push it, making sure not to go into the opening there. And I stick my head kind of down at the level of my blank so that I can see to make sure that it's covered all to the edges, and I spin it around so I can make sure that I got to all the edges. Now that it's on all of the edges, I'm going to add a little bit more glitter to the parts where it just doesn't look as full. And since resin is self-leveling, it will kind of just level out. And don't worry, I have a silicone mat under there, so if you spill, it's okay. But it'll level out and it will hold where you pushed it to. So that surface tension is pretty strong and it's not going to spill over the edges when you add a little bit more glitter. Once you're happy with the way that the glitter looks, this is an optional step, but this is a heat embossing gun. And from a distance, you can turn it on and just pop any bubbles. And this will just make sure that your coating is super smooth. So I'm just going to turn it on and zap any bubbles. And you'll notice that I stayed kind of at a distance so that it didn't overflow. So now we are good to put it under the lamp. So take your lamp and just place it right over your design and start the timer for 60 seconds. You're going to do this 3 times. I do mine 4, but the light cure resin recommends at least 3 minutes, so I would say definitely start with 3. Once the time is up, I rotate my heat lamp to different angles so that I get the entire blank covered with that UV light. And then we'll turn it one last time. Once it comes out of the lamp, it is hard. If you want there to be another clear coating over the glitter, you can add another thin layer of resin over the top. I don't mind a little bit of glitter texture since it is glittery. And then we'll flip it over and take off this masking. I choose to leave the masking on because I don't want anything to drip onto the other side. So that's kind of just a protective layer, and you can see just how pretty and sparkly it looks through the clear acrylic. If any UV resin went over the edges, you can kind of just run your finger over it to make sure that it's not on the front side. This looks good, and now we're ready to apply the vinyl. I cut my vinyl using my Cricut machine, and I'll link to my vinyl that I'm using as well as this cute little vinyl trash can that I just got. It's super helpful because it will just take off the little vinyl pieces off my weeding tool so they don't go everywhere. Now that we have our vinyl weeded, we're going to apply it using whatever transfer tape you want, and we'll be using the parchment paper method to place it onto the blank. So when you put your transfer tape on, give yourself a little bit of room to the left or the right side of your image so that we can stick it on to our blank. So I'm just going to apply that on, burnish it with my finger, and then flip it over and peel the liner away from the transfer tape. And then on my blank, I'm going to place my parchment paper and my decal on the parchment paper, leaving just a little bit of the transfer tape exposed. So the transfer tape is kind of exposed on that left side. And then I can use the parchment paper to wiggle this around until I get the placement that I want. And then once I'm happy with the placement, I can use that transfer tape to hold it in place. So let's make sure I like that. I'm going to hold it up eye level. It's a little bit wonky. So instead of having to commit to that, I can just peel it right up and replace it down onto my blank and even it out to how I want it. So once you're happy with the placement, the transfer tape will hold it in place, and you can peel back your parchment paper and your transfer tape and then press this down onto your blank. So then it's nice and straight. You'll burnish that on and then peel off your transfer tape at a 45-degree angle. So at this point, you could be done with your project. It looks great how it is, but you'll notice that the vinyl is able to be peeled off. Whereas this one, it can't be peeled off because I have another layer of UV resin. So we're going to add another layer of UV resin over the top of my vinyl so that you won't be able to feel that vinyl at all. So just make sure your vinyl is pressed down, there's no bubbles, and then you can apply your resin. Don't forget to put your gloves back on, and then we're going to use the bottle to just apply the clear over the top. So the same technique as before, start in the middle and then work your way out. And this can be as thick or as thin as you'd like, since we're just really wanting to cover up the vinyl edges. The clear is a little bit harder to see, so I like to kind of get down again at eye level and smush it out, smooth it out, so that it doesn't go over the edges. So I'm going to start with that. And then working at eye level, I'm just going to push this to the edges. I like working with UV resin because you don't have to wait for it to cure. So this project normally would take you 2 days with just regular resin, but with UV resin, it's kind of that instant gratification where you can do your project and then pull it out in just a few minutes. If you notice any spots that are a little bit thin, you can just add a little bit of resin. And once you're happy with your resin, again, you'll just take your heat gun and from a distance, just pop any bubbles. All right, so it looks good. We're going to place our heat lamp over the top and do 4 minutes again. So I was just looking over the instructions to make sure that it was only 3 minutes, and it turns out it is 4 minutes. So you do the first 60 seconds and then rotate either your project or the lamp and do it 3 more times. So a total of 4 minutes. So now the vinyl is under that clear UV resin, so you can't even feel it. You won't be able to pick it or peel it off. And it just feels super professional and well done. So now that we're done, you can either add a ribbon or you can add some Keychain Hardware. So this is from Backfist Customs, and I just added a jump ring. And then we'll take some pliers and just squish these closed. And I just run mine back and forth until they get tighter together. Until they're touching like that. And now our keychain or ornament is all done and it's ready to go. So you don't have to wait for it to dry or anything. It comes out of the lamp and it is good to go. It's completely hard. There's no stickiness. So you'll have to let me know if you try this project. Again, I'll put all the links in the video description so that you can get the keychains and glitter from Backfist Customs and try out UV resin. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.